November 27, 2014, from Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. It was the Chicago Bears versus the Detroit Lions in this NFC North rivalry matchup. As this game was going on Thanksgiving, and the Bears won the toss and elected to defer, so the Lions would take over first. They would go 3 and out, so the Bears would then take over on their own 45 with about 13 and a half minutes left in the first. Cutler then went to Brandon Marshall for a 9-yard pass to make it 2nd and 1 in Detroit territory on the 46. He then went to Jeffery for a 2-yard pass to make it a first down on the 44. Cutler then went to Bennett for a 12-yard pass and was a first down on the Detroit 32. And then he went to Forte, and Forte took it 22 yards to the 10-yard line to make it 1st and goal. Then on 2nd and goal, Cutler went to Alshon Jeffery for the 10-yard pass and the touchdown that made it 7-0 as the Bears put the first points on the scoreboard. So now the Lions would take over with about 10.5 minutes left in the first, starting off on their own 20. Matthew Stafford hit Calvin Johnson Jr. for a 10-yard pass on the first down to bring the ball to the 30. Joique Bell then ran for 8 yards to make it 2nd and 2 on the 38. And Stafford went to the rookie Ebron for a 13-yard pass to make it a first down in Chicago territory at the 49. Stafford then went to Megatron for a 20-yard pass. It was now a first down on the Chicago 29. Joique Bell then lost a yard, and Stafford then went to Pettigrew. And now it was 3rd and 9, and an incomplete pass would bring out Prater as he would attempt a 46-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and the Lions were now on the scoreboard with the score Chicago 7, Detroit 3. So now the Bears would take over, but they would go 3 and out and punt the ball back to Detroit, who would now take over with 4.5 minutes left in the first quarter. They had it on their own 5, and then after a penalty, it would end up coming out to the 10, and it would be 1st and 5, and Stafford was sacked by Allen, and he fumbled the ball, and it was recovered by Jared Allen, and it was now the Bears' ball, 1st and goal on the Detroit 5. They lost a yard on first down and would bring up 2nd and goal on the 6, and Jay Cutler went to Alshon Jeffery, and they connected for a touchdown pass, a 6-yarder. This was the second time they connected for a touchdown, and it was now 14-3 Bears over the Lions. So now Detroit would take over with 3.5 minutes left in the first. They'd have it on their own 22, and they'd bring the ball up to midfield and into Chicago territory. And on 1st and 10 from the Chicago 39, they ended up getting a yard, and there was a penalty, though, of offensive holding, and that would bring it back, and that would bring the first quarter to a close. So after 1 quarter of play, the score was Chicago 14, Detroit 3. So to open up the second quarter, the Lions had the ball on the Chicago 49. It was 1st and 20. Stafford went to Fuller for 21 yards in the first down at the Chicago 28. Stafford then went to Ebron. He picked up 4. And then he went to Joique Bell, ended up running, and he lost yards. Now it's 3rd and 7 from the Chicago 25. Stafford dropped back to pass, and he hit Calvin Johnson Jr. for the 25-yard touchdown pass. And it was now a 4-point game, as the score was Chicago 14, Detroit 10. So now the Bears would take over with about 13 minutes left before halftime. They had it on their own 20, and they would bring the ball up towards midfield, but their drive would stall on the 48, and they would end up punting after 11 plays. So now Detroit would take over with a little less than 8 minutes on the clock in the second quarter. They were on their own 14-yard line. Stafford then went to Megatron for an 11-yard pass to make it a first down on the 25. Stafford then went to Gould and Tate, this time for 19 yards, and it was a first down on the 44. Then on 3rd and 5 from the 49, Stafford went to Ross, and he picked up 31 to make it a first down on the Chicago 20. There was then an unnecessary roughness call after a pass to Gould and Tate, a short pass, a 4-yard pass, and ended up making it a 1st and goal on the 8. Stafford then went back to Tate, and it was a 3-yard pass, and that made it 2nd and goal on the 5. Joique Bell then ran for a touchdown, but there was a holding call, and that would bring the ball back to the 15. So now it was 2nd and goal on the 15. Stafford went to Riddick, and he almost got into the end zone, but he was just a yard shy, and that would make it 3rd and goal on the 1. An incomplete pass would make it 4th down, and the Lions went for it. and they went to Joique Bell, and Joique Bell got the touchdown on the 1-yard run as the Lions took the lead for the first time in this game with the score now Detroit 17, Chicago 14. So now the Bears would take over with a little over 3 minutes left in the second quarter. They would go 3 and out and punt the ball to the Lions. So the Lions had the ball back with less than 2 minutes on the clock before halftime. They had it on their own 36, and Calvin Johnson Jr. went to Megatron. It was a 9-yard pass, and Megatron went over 10,000 career receiving yards with that reception, and that's the fewest games to reach 10,000 career receiving yards. He did it in 115 games. So now it was 2nd and 1 from the Detroit 45, and Stafford went to Riddick. He picked up 19 yards after the catch. Well, from having caught it, and then with the whole total thing was 19 yards. Now it was a first down on the Chicago 36. Stafford then went to Megatron for a 6-yard pass, and it was 2nd and 4 from the 30. Stafford then went to Gould and Tate. He picked up 24, and now the Lions took a timeout with a half a minute left on the clock. 1st and goal on the 6. Stafford drops back to pass, and he goes to Megatron, Calvin Johnson Jr. for the 6-yard touchdown pass, and it was now a 10-point lead for the Lions with the score 24-14, Detroit over Chicago. The Bears would get the ball back, but they would take a knee, and this game went to halftime. So going into the locker rooms at halftime, the score was Detroit 24, Chicago 14. The Bears would get the ball to start the third quarter. They'd start out on their own 20, and they would bring the ball up to midfield when Cutler hit Jeffery on a 26-yard pass on 3rd and 18 from the 29. They made it a first down on the 45 of Detroit. Then on 3rd and 3, Cutler went back to Jeffery, and this time for a 14-yard pass, they made a first down on the 24 of Detroit for the Bears. Their drive would stall, though, on the 17, and out would come Gould to attempt the 35-yard kick. It was up, it was good, and it was back to a 7-point game with the score Detroit 24, Chicago 17. So now the Lions would get the ball back with about 9 minutes left on the clock in the third quarter, but they would go 3 and out and punt the ball to the Bears, who now took over with less than 8 minutes on the clock, and they had it on their own 38. 5 plays later, though, from the 50, they would punt the ball back to Detroit. And so now the Lions would take over in the shadow of their own end zone on their own 5-yard line with about 6 minutes on the clock in the third. They would end up facing a 3rd and 4 from the 11, and Stafford picked up the first down with a 6-yard pass to Gould and Tate. Then on 2nd and 10 from the 38, Stafford went to Theo Riddick for another first down. That was the 3rd first down of the possession. Stafford then went to Gould and Tate for a 22-yard pass to make it a first down in Chicago territory at the 29. Joique Bell then ran for 11 yards to make it another first down as the Lions were now in the red zone on the Chicago 18. Then on 2nd and 10 from the 18, Stafford was sacked by Willie Young, but there was a roughing the passer call, and so now it was 1st and goal on the 9. After an incomplete pass made it 2nd down, Stafford then dropped back and he went to Furia and he picked up 8 yards, and the third quarter came to a close with the score Detroit 24, Chicago 17. So now to begin the fourth quarter was the Lions ball on the Chicago Bears 1-yard line, 3rd and goal, and they went to Joique Bell and he ran it in for his 2nd touchdown of the game. This one to make it 31-17, Lions over the Bears. So a 1-yard touchdown run by Joique Bell. The Bears now would get the ball with just a few seconds ticked off the clock in the fourth quarter, but after 5 plays, they would punt it back to Detroit. And Detroit would now take over on their own 22 with about 13 minutes on the clock, but after 6 plays, they would punt the ball from the Chicago 46. So now the Bears would take over on their own 3-yard line with a little over 10 minutes on the clock. Cutler went to Bennett. He picked up 7. Now it was 2nd and 3 from the 10. Cutler drops back, and he was intercepted by Glover Quinn. And it was now the Lions' ball on the Chicago 42 with about 9.5 minutes left to play in this game. Stafford then went to Theo Riddick. He picked up 5 yards, and then Joique Bell ran for 7. Stafford was then sacked for a 2-yard loss by Allen. Now it was 2nd and 12. Stafford went to Bell, and Bell picked up 10. That made it 3rd and 2. An incomplete pass, though, would bring out Prater to attempt a 40-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and it was now Detroit 34, Chicago 17. The Bears now would get the ball on their own 20 with about a little over 6 minutes on the clock, but they would go 3 and out as the Lions defense came up with a big stop and got the ball back for their offense. And so now Detroit would take over on their own 39 with about 5 minutes on the clock. They would march into Chicago territory, and they ended up going for it on 4th and 6 from the Chicago 13, but instead of picking up the first down or getting in the end zone, they turn it over on downs. So now the Bears would take over with less than 2 minutes on the clock on their own 14-yard line, and they would march all the way down into the red zone. But on 1st and 10 from the 14, Cutler was intercepted by Hadabo for the touchback, and this game came to a close. So the final score, Detroit 34, Chicago 17. And with the win, the Lions are now 8-4 on the season, 5-1 at home. The Bears are 5-7 on the season, 3-4 on the road. Matthew Stafford was 34 for 45 with 390 passing yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. Jay Cutler was 31 for 48 with 280 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. The leading rusher in the game was Joique Bell. He had 23 carries for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 16 yards receiving off of 2 receptions. And the leading receiver was Megatron Calvin Johnson Jr., 11 receptions, 146 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Martellus Bennett for the Bears had 109 yards receiving off of 8 receptions. And the leading tackler in this game was Ryan Mundy of the Chicago Bears. He had 12 tackles. John Bostic had 11 tackles. And for Detroit, DeAndre Levy had 10 tackles. The Lions had 3 sacks. Ansah, Jones, and Fullen all had 1 sack each. And the Bears had 2 sacks. They were both for Allen. And there was 2 interceptions. They were both for Detroit. Hadabo and Glover Quinn each having 1 interception apiece. So the Lions come up big on defense and on offense, and they put up 34 while holding the Bears to 17, and that's your final score. Detroit 34, Chicago 17. Happy Thanksgiving.